Hello? Okay, so is there an echo still, or is it all good now? Okay, perfect. Thanks for bearing with us, everybody. If it's all right with our lovely hosts, which I think today are Bobo and Sin, we might run a little bit late, just so that we can make up for the time of technical difficulties. Okay, but you can still understand me? Perfect. So welcome one and all to Here Be Monsters, Creature Design 101. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Cicada Carpenter, and I am a storyteller, a game dev, a monster creator, lots of different hats that I wear. But today I'm going to be teaching you specifically how to design monsters, with a particular slant towards designing monsters that fit into a world building context, and also with some visual storytelling in there. So we're going to jump right in. To start with, we're going to look at some creatures that other people have designed. And some of you may have seen these already, hopefully most of you have not. But we're just going to try to figure out what these kinds of creatures are and what they might do just based on looking at them. So I'm starting off with this creature. It's called a newt hopper by R.J. Palmer. They also go by Arbalis in a lot of places. And the first thing that I can tell you by looking at this creature is that it can jump, which seems kind of obvious, but you can tell that it's obviously in the air. It's got its tail up. It's got these huge legs that can hop around with, that look kind of frog-like despite it being a newt, and obviously its name is a hopper. You can also see that there are these little weird little spike things hanging off of here, which might not be that much of note, except that you can see that they're kind of flying off here. They've got some purple juice coming out of them, for lack of a better word. And you can also see that they kind of look like arrows in this shape, which kind of makes me think like poison darts or something similar, especially with the purple here. And similarly, it's spewing all of this purple stuff out of its back, which is also probably something really toxic. And other than that, it looks kind of like a standard amphibian, but just from knowing that it's an amphibian, we can tell a little bit about its life cycle. Like, this probably has some kind of little monster tadpoles of some sort. It probably lives in or near water, or if it doesn't, some kind of liquid. Who knows, with this kind of creature, it could be some sort of like toxin that it swims in. But you can also see trees in the background, which give you kind of an idea of its environment. So just based off of this quick little sketch, which this particular monster doesn't even have much of a backstory or world that it fits into, we can see all sorts of things about this creature. You can also, actually, one more little thing, it's spitting out a tiny bit of like goop, so we can tell that it probably spits it out somewhere like that too. I'm gonna open up another one. So this one is called Noko, and it's from the game Yokai Watch. Is there anything that anybody here can tell me about its design already that you might know? Might be a little bit of lag, because I think there's some delay. Yeah, so it's based off of a Tsuchinoko, which are these little, very fat little snakes. And there's not a lot I can remember about actual Tsuchinoko, other than they are very fast. I think they get drunk a lot. But yeah, these creatures, they've got a little clover on their head, and they've got a little heart on their tail. There's a huge grin here, and a little bow tie. So this is probably a very friendly, like, mascot kind of character. got the little cheek blush as well. It doesn't look very dangerous, even though it's a snake. And so they've kind of turned this design into something that you might not expect from a snake, since a lot of times in creature design they're very slinky, sometimes evil. I think snakes are wonderful, for the record, but this is just kind of an unexpected spin on a snake design than you see in most creature design media. And then since this is a Mon game, like Pokemon or Digimon, where they can evolve, it ends up turning into this little snake, which kind of just elaborates on that concept of it being a very cute, friendly snake with like a little plant on its head. So now it's pink, it's got even more of a heart tail, it's got some little stripes. But another thing that I want everybody to notice from these designs is that there's this little clover on the head. And it looks kind of out of place, but the Tsuchinoko design has actually added these spots on the side here that are the same exact color as the leaf to kind of unify the design and bring it back together. And that doesn't have very much of a world-building storytelling context, but we'll get back to that a little bit later. And the same thing goes here. This one has the spots on the leaves, and this petal, or the flower here, kind of has the same sort of like color scheme as the belly. So it just ties back to each other, and same cheek dots and the tail stripes and the tail itself. Got one more here. Oh, where did it go? There it is. So this one is more of a horror spin. So this creature is from Mordasheen, which is an as-of-yet unreleased tabletop game by Bogleach or Jonathan, I think you say Wojcik? I'm so sorry, Bogleach, if I botched your name. So the first thing I want to ask here is, where do you think this creature might live? And how do you think it probably moves? Yeah, so we've got space and leeches. That's kind of where my mind wanders to. So, might live in a void. I could also say that I can see it in like a deep sea environment maybe, but the stars also kind of harken back to the space theme. Either... That would be great if it walked around by head standing. So yeah, it, unfortunately, based on this design, it probably doesn't walk around by head standing, although I would love to see that now. It looks to me like it's kind of floating, and these big arms here kind of make me think of wings. And this, the designer was actually going for kind of an angelic theme here, so that kind of ties back into those. But my eye keep going back to this like person that's hidden in here, and then down to the eye, even though there's this whole creature on it. And so obviously I don't really know what's going on with the person here, and that's actually part of the design, is that nobody knows what's going on with the person here, this creature. It's just kind of a mystery in universe as well. It adds a good focal point, it adds some interesting some lore that you can build off of later, and there are actually some similar creatures in the same universe that look very similar to this, but have other body parts kind of floating in them. Yeah, maybe it eats people. Maybe that's what's going on here. It's also got this one singular eye, which serves as a secondary focal point and kind of gives you an idea of how the creature senses. So this is obviously a very alien design to us. It is actually based off of a real-life animal, but it's, I'd be surprised if anybody could guess it. Actually, if anybody can guess what this is based off of, I'll do you a little doodle at the end of the stream, without looking it up. But, so this eye kind of gives you an idea of how it might interact with the world, despite being this bizarre eldritch monster. And it also kind of gives you an insight into what its powers might be, so maybe like this shoots lasers out, or maybe it can see into your thoughts, or maybe it's got some other idea around this little weird alien eye that's going on here. Another thing that I want to know is, this one has a very simple color palette, but there's still that repetition there of the red color scheme between the body and the eye for the contrast. that kind of ties those two focal points together and brings your eye between the two of them. And also with the limbs. So they could have just left all of these arms and legs off of here since it floats. Can anybody still hear me? Testing, 1, 2. Okay. So Bubba, can you hear me now, or does it just cut out for a second? Okay. So anyways, there's some repetition with the limbs here, and so they could have left these limbs out because it's obviously a floating creature, but, there are these little arms to kind of reflect on these big arms, and then these legs just kind of elaborate on that concept a little bit more to just bring it back, just a little bit further. And same with these little pinchers on the tail here. Also, I can say it's not a sea slug, or any kind of nudibranch, and I don't think it's an isopod. I'm like 90% sure that this creature is not a species of isopod. Okay, so I'm going to dive into a little bit more of like design concept basics here, and then after that we'll get into actually designing a creature, and you're welcome to follow along or make suggestions. So I'm going to start with some Pokemon. So Pokemon is one of my like many passions, and it's kind of what got me into creature design. But I'm just going to focus on some of the first generation Pokemon for now, because they're generally some of the more familiar to folks. And the first thing that I can tell you is these are all from the same game. And if you kind of look at them as they are and pretend that you've never seen a Pokemon in your life, or maybe you haven't actually played Pokemon, they kind of look like they're from a different game. They're from different franchises, or they're from different worlds or something, just drawn by the same artist. But if you look very closely, you can see that there are some design similarities, most notably in how simple they are. Like they're generally very, very simple shapes that are kind of easy to draw. Even if they have like kind of elaborations on it, like this Venusaur here. They're all also very simple as far as markings. Like this is all solid color. This is all solid color. Any markings are usually either kind of protruding like this, or they're very, very simple, like blocks of color, like this belly button, or the belly shading and all of that. Just a guy. And there's also, if you look at the eyes, even though the eyes are all totally different shapes, they're still sort of in the same style. They frequently, they either have a white sclera and a black pupil, or they have just the opposite of that. And they almost always have just two colors. So even with Venusaur, it has white and red instead of white and black, and same with Rapidash here. And then, if we go, I'm going to look at Eevee here really quickly as well, which actually does kind of the opposite, where Eevee and all of its evolutions, sorry, kind of have the same body plan and almost the same silhouette, even though they're all like different poses and different personalities. So we have the basic Eevee here, which is just sitting, ears. And then we have all of the other evolutions follow the same exact head and ears variations, so that you can tell instantly that these are related. And so this doesn't always apply just for like Mon games where they evolve into each other. It can also apply for counterpart creatures, or creatures that might have a common ancestor, or otherwise things that you just want to have a similar vibe to them. And can even, you can play around with it with one creature, and maybe there's a mimic of that creature that shares sort of the same body plan, but maybe it's an entirely different animal. Or not an animal at all. They don't have to be. And I'm also going to look at
Um,
some Monster Hunter designs. I'm not as familiar as Monster Hunter, so I just picked some of the ones that stood out to me or ones that I liked from seeing around. So the first thing that you can kind of tell between Design Unity and Monster Hunter's World is most of the monsters are reptilian, or if not, they have some reptilian features. So obviously, we got a reptile, another one. These are all basically like reptile based, even though they have like other features such as fur and other non-reptile features going out. So they're obviously more than just a reptile. They're monsters in their own right. And similarly, the Palumu, I think that's how you say it here, has this little spiky tail and has these kind of, they're technically bat wings, but they harken back to dragon wings in the design. And same thing with this Kyrian or unicorn kind of creature. Has this kind of weird angular shape to it in these horns. They might be ears, but they like kind of look like horns. It's got these very spiky mane here. And even this pig here has this weird helmet thing going on with the weird scaly spikes on it. So between these mostly pretty different designs and different niches in Monster Hunter's World, they keep kind of their own style to them that you can tell that they are from the same they're all the same sort of monster, more or less, and they're all from the same universe. Some of that also factors into the style and the art of the game. And each of these creatures also still retains their own personality and concepts, like what's going on here? Like, is that a little turret? Is that a bird friend that's sitting on it? It's got all this moss going on it. And we've got, like, this one is blowing bubbles, and it's got these iridescent frills over here, and this one's got a whole little neck ruff that's puffed up that give you kind of an idea of what they might do and what they might act like. So I think that we'll move on from that then, and I have one more design concept to kind of show off. This one I'm actually going to use, not monsters, but this is my favorite example of this technique. So, Gravity Falls, which is a cartoon show that was on Disney for a little while. And it centers around these two twins in this little town in Oregon, I think it is, somewhere around there. But if we're going to look at just like the silhouettes of these two characters, you can tell that they kind of have a similar shape. Don't come at me with cal art style. So they're kind of the same exact body plan. But immediately there's these kind of areas that jump out of the silhouette to differentiate them from each other. So Mabel, this twin on the left, has like her hair that kind of sticks out, and Dipper has the hat and the jacket. But so while they have kind of like the same exact body plan, you can still tell that they're very distinct characters, even just at a glance, and even just looking at their silhouette. And similarly, you can kind of tell their personality from the way that they're standing, from their expression, from the clothes that they wear, and still from that silhouette of like peeking out there. But you can also tell that they must be related in some way, or even if that just means they're both the same main characters of the same show, because of the similarities in their design. And in this case, they are both twins, and they're kind of presented as like opposites personality-wise, and that's a huge conflict of the show, so making them similar kind of reflects that character for them. Similarly, if you pit them up against other characters in the show, that contrast between them and everybody else is just even more pronounced. And I'm going to harken back to Eevee here, where Eevee compared to all of these looks very similar. But if we go back to our Pokemon, Vaporeon here looks kind of out of place among all of these other creatures going on here. So, what do you folks say that we get to designing? So I'm starting with a blank canvas here. And as you've probably noticed, I typically sketch in blue. It's just a habit that I've run into. But I'm going to start today by actually coming up with an existing creature. So I started doing some research last night on leaf-nosed bats. So they're kind of got these funky little noses here. I'm just drawing this from memory. Normally I would have some references, but I didn't want to mess up the flow of the workshop. Sorry, just one moment. Why did you... My wife just brought me a minion on a bicycle and put it on my desk, but alright. So they've typically got like little eyes, they've got a little like nose coming up here, they've got kind of a little body, wings coming off, and they've got little hands with their wings. Yeah, I'll take a picture of it and like send it to the Babycastles chat or something.
I got it from a Kinderjoy.
Apparently it came from a Kinderjoy. I guess it's mine now. Oh, I actually messed up the wing here. They got little feet. And they actually, leaf-nosed bats specifically don't have any sort of tail. There are bats that do have tails, and some of them actually have really long tails. Okay, yeah, I can try to give you a character design analysis of minions towards the end. Okay, I can't say it will be very much in minions' favor, because I'm also just kind of annoyed with them. So I've got my base little bat here. So this isn't very much of a monster yet. So what I'm going to actually do first is try to decide what are the most important features of a bat. And some creature designers that I know will actually, instead of saying what's the most important thing about a bat, they'll think about what's the most, what do they like the most about bats, what's most interesting. Whichever approach you take is fine. I usually just do whatever I can do to still make it recognizable as a bat. So the first thing I'm going to say is actually the ears. And then the nose, right afterwards. Since this is a leaf-nosed bat. Yeah, the personality of the bat is the most important part. I actually, while the wings are important, I think that I can look at a creature that's like, that has the ears and the nose of a bat, but doesn't have the wings, but still looks like a bat. Like a lot of kind of messed up vampires come to mind with like the weird, like the weird monstrous kind that you might see. And honestly, those might not even have ears. So I think the ears and the nose, and then there's like a little round kind of fuzzy body. And those are the things that say bat to me most. I'm going to incorporate some more pieces of this into this design. But that's what I want to like keep central to all of the designs that I'm going to do today. And also in my research, I found out that there are two different species of leaf-nosed bats specifically. One of them you've probably heard of called the vampire bat, which is infamous for being an animal that subsists almost entirely on blood. There's also one called the spectral bat, which has a very spooky name and is, usually eats like vertebrates, which is kind of rare for a bat, and is really big for a bat as well. But there are also these bats called tent-making bats, which will take a leaf, and literally chew in the center of it, so that it folds over, and then there's some little bats hanging out inside. So they basically make themselves a little home. And that also got me thinking about hammerhead bats, which just have like this horrible, horrible snout. Sorry, that's kind of mean to the bats, but their vocal cords take up like most of their body is what I kind of found out, and this whole thing is just so that they can honk really loudly, because it's part of their mating ritual. I love bats. I love bats so much. They're horrible animals. They have so much going on, and they're so weird, and they're like, how would you even how did you evolve to exist this way? I love them so much. I can't believe I'm losing washers because of me calling out bats for their evolutionary. Their advantages, but like, what is going on with them? Anyways, so I'm going to take kind of a mons slant to this, where I'm going to design an evolutionary line of 3 monsters, and I'm going to start out with a little like fuzzy baby bat, and I'm going to have it evolve into either the spooky like spectral vampire bat design, or it's going to go into the tent making hammerhead bat design that's kind of a construction worker. Let's see if I can draw a hammerhead from memory. Oh yeah, I can. Kind of. It looks enough like a hammerhead. So I'm going to start off here with just doing a whole bunch of sketches. Just kind of coming up with whatever comes to mind. So the first thing I'm thinking is kind of like a really, just like a little circle with a nose on it. Some big ears. And I think I'm going to give it like some shaggy like thing to show that there's eyes under here but you can't see them. And it's got little tiny hands, little tiny feet. So there's my first like bat little creature for the baby. I can elaborate on this a little more. I want to make it a little more ovular. Actually, I'm going to move that down. And I'm going to give it way bigger ears to kind of emphasize that part of its design. And I'm keeping the little lines in here just because that's how I like to draw bat ears. I think it looks cute. I'm also going to add big nose. Actually, this time I'm going to add some little cuts in it. Or maybe just one cut, actually. So that it kind of looks more like a leaf. It's got a little dip in it. And it also might kind of give you the idea of a nostril. I'm used to drawing on my iPad, so it's really weird drawing on my computer for the once in like months. Oh, where did there we go. I'm still gonna give it the little feet. Maybe it's got little arms or something like that. And I'm actually going to add like a little face here that's still got the eyes hidden, but you can kind of see the mouth. And I'm going to do a little detail shot of how the mouth looks, just to give you an idea. Something like that for this little bat monster. I'll probably also make the ears look a little bit more like leaves. Kind of go back to that. Okay, so I've got kind of a basic design for the little baby bat. I'm gonna try to focus a little bit more on the adult bats. So I'm gonna start with drawing, I'm gonna just draw a little vampire bat. They've got kinda, weird feet. They kind of have like backwards knees. It's been a while since I've actually like seen a vampire bat. I forgot to like actually look at pictures last night, because I've just actually done research on these before. Got little kind of ears, and they've got a really weird nose. It's not exactly leaf shaped. Kind of walk on their hands and feet here. Yeah, they have like effectively their bodies kind of go like this, where their arm comes out, here's their hand, here's some of their fingers coming back, and then their legs go like this. They just kind of waddle along on the ground. Actually, most bats will like have their knees like backwards as they fly, which is really fun. I'm pretty sure that they just like kind of like twist their whole leg backwards. It's not like the knee joint is wired backwards or anything, but that's how bats work. So there's a lot of really cool design ideas that you can come out with just by doing a lot of research and reading a lot about whatever your basis for the design is. A lot of times I will look at animals, I'll look at the folklore surrounding those animals, which is especially fun with things like vampire bats. I'll also look at similar things to the animal or things that the animal reminds me of. So for example, leaf-nosed bats kind of have the obvious, it literally has a leaf for a nose, which also for a mons-specific game, or really a lot of games, any kind of RPG for the most part, gives you kind of an elemental spin to it, which is really fun. You can also look at completely unrelated things and kind of try to mash things together and see if they stick. So I actually have a huge idea document. Actually, let me pull this up really quick. Which is literally just monster concepts that I have. And I literally just have this whole thing of just things that I write down any second that I get that I think about a monster. And then I just kind of stick things together, and I actually made myself a little generator where if I just click a button, it'll generate me 2 of these, and I'll try to mash them together in some strange way. So for example, maybe a maned wolf and a boxer crab. Like, that doesn't seem like it would fit together. Maybe I can make it so that maned wolves have really long legs, and boxer crabs have these, like, literal, like, mitten fists of their pinchers. So maybe, like, we'll give it kind of a crab-like face, but it's still kind of, like, wolf-shaped. Maybe, like, some antennae that look kind of like ears. And then I'll give it some, like, really long, like, paw crab legs. I don't know, something. And that's obviously just from, like, 2 seconds of, like, trying to think about these animals, how you might fuse them. But that can be a really fun design exercise, just to take things and mash them together however you want to think about it. Anyways, back to designing this little bat. So I've got that, and then an actual, like, tent-making bat just kind of looks like a little, like, puffball. And they actually have these, like, stripes along their head here as well. They're mostly just brown. They've got little legs hanging out. Usually they're hanging upside down from a leaf. So from these designs, I can kind of come up with concept of this bat. Maybe I won't even give it wings, I'll just have it be on the ground. I want to give it those big ears again, but maybe a little bit smaller in proportion. Still a pretty big nose. And then I've got to get these weird, like, wing posture, even if there's no wing kind of thing in here. Maybe I will give them wings, but we'll see. So there's that, sort of a base body plan. And I think I am actually going to end up giving them wings so that I can do kind of like a sitting up pose. To give them a little bit more personality. Because this doesn't really give me the idea that it can, like, build things, which it gives me kind of like the vampire spectral bat energy, but I need to try to capture both a little bit. So, give it the little fuzzy body. And a fun thing about bats, if you don't know already, is their wings are basically just really long hands. So I actually learned how to draw bat wings first, and then I learned how to draw hands, so I kind of draw hands as, like, very short bat wings. But I think most people think about it the other way. I do want to ask to Bobo and Sin, how late do you want me to go? Is it okay if I go to the 30-minute mark, or do you want me to wrap up pretty quick? Okay, cool. So I've got kind of a base, kind of bat-ish body plan going on here. The first thing that I'm actually going to do is the spectral bat and the vampire bat kind of make me think of like a Halloween sort of theme. So I'm actually going to change the leaf to be a maple leaf. It's kind of almost star-shaped here. And I'm still going to have a little nick in it, but I'm going to make it more angular. And I am going to probably give them some little beady eyes. Probably squish that a little bit. Maybe I'll even have it that it's got like a little leaf-shaped mask and it's got its eyes peeking out of it, kind of like a Korok. Which if you haven't seen, they're from the Legend of Zelda series, and they've got like little leaf-shaped masks. Kind of like that. And I'm also going to try to give it some markings that kind of make it look like a skeleton. I was planning on having this little guy have kind of like a white body with a green leaf nose. And so I'm going to try to keep that theme going on through it, where it's got the white fur and then it's got the leaf nose, but I'm going to change it up a little bit as it evolves. So we'll go with still probably the fuzzy head and the big ears, but simplify it to a triangle nose sort of here. Still the big ears, still the fuzzy head. The body, I think, is going to have like this kind of rib pattern, like stripes on it. I think I'm just gonna do 3 fingers. Actually, I might just give it like little dinky feet to give it a little bit more distinction from an actual real bat. And also to kind of go back to this guy. And I think that I'm actually going to not quite add a tail, but add like a little weird tail kind of thing that looks kind of like a cape to this, to give it some extra kind of spookiness. So now if it wraps up, it kind of looks like the typical like vampire bat, but with the big maple leaf nose. And I might even mess around and turn the wings into his cape instead of actual wings. Oh, hey, yeah, speaking of non-games. I'll be around tonight, so I'll probably come hang out. And I do really like the little hand claws that they have, so I'm probably gonna add the little thumb claw hanging out there, even if I do make it into a cape. And on the other end of things, so if I want to do the little hammerhead bat, which is going to have more of a building theme to it, and I'm probably going to make this one standing rather than a flying creature, just to give it kind of more of a grounding aspect to it. And usually we don't think of construction as being in midair, which you could probably make some cool world building around that, especially if you had like a bat society or something. But I'm going to go the easier route here. So I'm probably going to give it kind of a blunter nose. Its head might not end up exactly hammer shaped, but probably still around there somewhere. Actually, I think I'm going to add a neck ruff to these guys. It's a little extra visual entrance, and also kind of harkening back to the very fuzzy body of the first stage. Not really sure how I'm going to do the legs on this one. Let me just keep them as little stubs for now. And so I do want to make it clear that I am like speed creature designing here, but as time goes on, if I decide to develop these ideas further, there will be a lot more sketches. I've spent pages and pages just trying to design the same monster. And so obviously you don't have to put as much effort into it as I do. I put a lot of thought and research into my creature designs just because I absolutely love to world build. And that's kind of the slant that this has taken. But you don't have to. As somebody was saying earlier, a lot of the Pokemon designs even were kind of designed in retrospect, based off of the sprites, which I'm sure were just little doodles that a lot of people were making. And there are a lot of monster games today that still do the same thing, and still go great. I was actually playing one recently called Monster Crown, and it's pretty new. It's still in early access, but it's kind of got the original, like, Game Boy monster game kind of feel to it. And all the designs are pretty simple. There's not very much to them, but they're still enjoyable to me because I like them. I think that they're cute, even if there's not a lot of thought that seems put behind most of them. And you also kind of have to think about quality versus quantity, especially if you're just one person working on a project. You can only do so much research at a time, And so you might end up making more monsters over more meaningful monsters, and that's okay. And then I think for these guys, I'm actually gonna give them like a little vest-looking thing. It kind of looks like a construction vest, and that also kind of goes back to the fact that tent-making bats have little stripes on their head. Oh, yeah, I totally can. Here, let me just try to darken my sketch color. Is that any better? Here, I can also just kind of zoom in. That might help some. Does that help? Cool. Yeah, so I'll just try to stay zoomed in. Anyways, I'm going to add some little, like, construction vest kind of stripes. Probably with the addition that these are, like, kind of reflective. And I'm kind of basing that on the fact that, tent-making bats will have these little stripes on their faces. So they kind of look like this, with little white stripes going on here. Those just mostly run down their back a little bit and then stop. And I'm gonna maybe give you a little hand to hold some wood or something with. I think maybe I'll try out what 3 fingers looks like. And then I might honestly just give them like cartoonishly, like cape-like bat arms to kind of fit in with where I'm going with the vampire bat. So I'm going to start a new layer here. Oh. And I'm going, the next step that I'm going to take is try to draw each of these creatures kind of from memory. Now that I have sort of a base concept that I want to go for in mind for all of them. So I've got a little spiky baby. So I end up trying to draw my own creatures from memory a lot, because a lot of times I'll get something wrong, but then I'll end up liking the mistake even better than the original. Just go up a bit. Then for the vampire, Sorry, I hope I'm not drawing, like, instinctively smaller. Let me know if you need me to, like, enlarge things or anything again. Give them some fangs. And I'm gonna add some more nicks in the ear leaves here, just to kind of add some more personality. Maybe this is a creature that's gotten into a lot of fights. Or maybe it's just a creature where the leaves are rotting since it's, like, vampire themed. I don't know. So another possible idea I could go with is maybe turning these wings into, like, something that looks like scaffold webbing or something like that. I don't actually know what that looks like off the top of my head, so I'm not going to mess with it right now, but I'll add, like, some little hatch marks to, like, kind of remind myself to visit that later. And I'll draw this wing kind of, like, out. I don't know, maybe they're pointing at something. Give them some confidence in contrast to this vampire bat, which looks kind of shy. So we have some very basic bat designs. And looking back at it, I've kind of kept the same vibe, but I like these ones better. Aside from this mouth here, which I liked a lot better, so I'll come back to that probably on like a future iteration. So it looks like we've got about 8 minutes left or so. We've got our bats here. I'll do some very basic like color flats down on them, and I'll keep an eye on the chat in case anybody has any more questions. And then I'll break down some minions before we go. So I'm gonna actually make this a grayish background. I'm gonna start off with some white, little fuzzy bat. And since I've got this kind of yellowish green for the bat, I'm going to make it more explicitly green for the construction bat. And I'm going to do the opposite on the vampire bat, to kind of give a flow between the designs, so it doesn't look like it's supposed to evolve more into one or the other. Then we'll do pretty dark kind of red for the... So I think we might go with the purplish for this. Purplish grayish. Maybe not, but we'll start there. And then we'll do kind of an orange tan for this bat. Oh, this is actually a brush that I made for myself. It's literally, I call it Block Bug. It's based off of like this marker brush, and I basically just, this is the original, and this is mine. I basically just made it a little bit smoother. So it's kind of like a almost crayon-ish square brush. And I'm gonna give this dude a little face. I'm just gonna probably make that more grayish. And then I'm also making the hands this color, doing that repetition again to kind of bring the design together. Let's see. Do some some color on the wings, and I'm going to make the wings and the vest the same color. And I'll probably mess around and make the vest a brighter color so that it's more obviously like a construction worker's outfit later on. And since the wood is not technically part of the design, I'm just going to make it generically wood colored. I don't generally worry too much about the colors of the props, unless it's like in a full scene, just because they can be added or removed as needed. And so they don't really contribute to the design itself that much. So yeah, I think I've got some very basic colors down here that I'm pretty happy with. Kinda that. So I am going to wrap up a little bit before I do the little minion analysis at the end. These are a few resources that I use a lot when I'm doing research, when I'm trying to design things, and just in general when I want to read about an animal or other creature that I am interested in. First, what is Real Monstrosities, which is only animals, but it has a lot of really cool niche creatures that you can find and jumpstart your creature design from. A lot of the monsters ideas that are on my list came from just searching through their site and writing down, oh, like, these vent worms look really cool, and I can, like, maybe come up with an idea for those. Bogleash.com is one of my absolute favorites. I will warn you, it is mostly a horror-themed site, so there is a lot of body horror going on, and not a lot of intense gore, but, like, there is some minor gore that goes with body horror. But if that's something that you can stomach, he literally what he does for a living is he just breaks down creature designs and reviews them based on how cohesive he thinks they are and how much he personally likes them, which obviously has more of like a horror slant to it. But he actually has a whole subset of the site that doesn't have any body horror or gore, that's just dedicated to review Pokemon, which is really fun to look down into. The Idea Dex is aimed more at Fakemon, but it's really great for anything. It's just a Tumblr blog full of just monster ideas of all shapes and sizes, and so a lot of them fit within the Pokemon universe of like these elements and this particular design, but most of them are just photos of creatures and objects and all sorts of other strange things you can base a monster off of or get Kickstarter ideas from. And then Wiki Species is just a subset of Wikimedia that's trying to create an article for every single documented species that we have. And if you just hit the random page button, you can find all sorts of cool things to kind of mess around with. And lastly, thanks for coming. Again, if you'd like to support us and what we do and Babycastles, you can go to withfriends.code/babycastles and donate. We'd appreciate a 5 to 15 donation for this academy in particular. And then if you'd like to check out my own work, including some of my games and my art and creatures, you can check me at shadybug.dev. And lastly, let me pull up some of our wonderful yellow friends, who I think were originally meant to be corn. Oh, hang on. These lovely minions. Okay, I'll go with this picture, because it has all three of them. Oh, that's kind of small, actually. Come on. Why are you... It's not actually letting me copy. Okay. Well, I'll just review it from here. So we have, these minions here. Oh man. Where do I even start? I like that they're simple shapes, because that's kind of, my forte in character design is I like very simple, very, like, easy to break down characters. And I like the fact that they managed to convey personality from, like, just being a yellow lozenge. But, I don't know, man. Where is the hair growing from? Like, why do they have hair, but some of them don't have hair, but it's all only just, like, little tufts? I also like, they have the overalls that don't really seem to fit in with the rest of the design. They're just kind of there. Same with the goggles. They don't seem to really fit in. I do like that they have the gloves and the boots are, like, the same, and they kind of mirror each other with the buttons and the straps. Otherwise, they're just obnoxious. I will say, though, that unfortunately, when I was, first, like, setting up kind of my computer system, I had just watched Despicable Me for the first time, and as a kid, I loved it. I thought it was a great movie, and honestly, it is still, it's still a pretty good movie. It's just kind of soured over time with what has happened to Illumination, I think. But, I named my folder for art that people have made for me, para mí, because of what the minions say, para tú. Okay. There's my confession for the night. Anyways, thank you all so much for coming to Creature Design 101. I really appreciate you all being here. And as Bobo and Sin have said, this will be up on YouTube later, so if you have other people that you want to show it to, or you just want to watch it again, then you totally can. And I will see you later. Thank you so much.